Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about breastfeeding a toddler. If you didn't know, I am still breastfeeding. My son is almost 15 months old, and the journey has changed a lot throughout our breastfeeding journey. So I kind of wanted to talk about why I chose to self-wean, what self-weaning means, why I chose to, I guess, extended breastfeeding. I feel like in America, over the age of 1 is considered extended breastfeeding. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, and then some of the health benefits and everything. I do want to put out like a little disclaimer before I get into everything that I am an advocate for fed is best. So this is not in any way meant to mom shame or put hatred towards any formula feeding moms or moms who did not breastfeed. This is mostly going to be for moms that are getting close to that 1 year age mark for their toddler and trying to decide if they should wean their toddler, start introducing whole milk, or if they should continue to breastfeed, and what that looks like, because breastfeeding a 1-year-old is a lot different than breastfeeding a newborn. So I have notes and everything, so I will be like kind of looking at my phone, but hopefully not too much. But I did want to share some like facts and some like health information with you guys, so I will be referring to my notes a little bit. Oh, another like smaller disclaimer is that this is what works for me. Being a stay-at-home mom, it's very easy for me to breastfeed because I'm with him all the time. So if you are someone that is going back to work or starting a job and it makes sense for you to wean on your own and do it yourself, then that's totally fine too. But for us, having the time and the availability of being home, self-weaning is what I chose to do, and I'll kind of share why. Okay, so first of all, self-weaning means basically to let your child decide when they are done breastfeeding. So instead of like weaning, where you're like slowly taking the boob away less and less and then just completely cutting it out, you actually self-wean, so the child decides when they are done breastfeeding. So they may choose to not do it as often, they might not want it before bed, and I'll kind of get into how it happened for us. And I think that that's like a really natural, really easy way for your child versus just like one day they're not breastfeeding anymore and they don't understand why. And there's a few signs you can kind of tell, like with Cal, with my son, he would definitely pull on my shirt a lot, and I knew that that meant he was hungry. So kind of look out for signs if your child is not ready to stop breastfeeding. I'd say definitely pay attention to those signs. I mean, we are all mammals, and breastfeeding is natural, and that's the way that it's not only the way that they get nutrients, but it's also the way that they get comfort. So look out for signs, like kind of decide, you know, some children might be ready to self-wean before the age of 1, but I would say that most children are usually going to go beyond that age. So here's some like health and nutrition facts about breastfeeding extended. And I want to say that I had never anticipated breastfeeding past the age of 1 while I was pregnant. I never even thought of it. I thought, you know, I'll get to 6 months, then we'll go from there, and then I'll get to a year, then we'll go from there. And as I started to do more and more research, I realized the benefits were so amazing of breastfeeding past 1. So that's why I decided to do it. Plus it's easy, so it was like a no-brainer for me. So I kind of wanted to share these like nutrition facts with you guys so you can understand where I'm coming from and why it might be beneficial for your baby as well. So as the child ages, the milk becomes more nutrient rich and it includes more antibodies. And as the children naturally decrease their amount of nursing, those antibodies increase in number. So that's really cool. So the less and less that your child is going to breastfeed, the more your milk is just going to become rich with antibodies, because knowing that just that little tiny amount of time that you're going to breastfeed, your milk is going to be full of antibodies for your baby. So it's really, really cool how the body works like that. So that's one thing, like even if you're just going to breastfeed once or twice a day after the age of 1, like I think that in itself is worth it. At 1 year of age, the immune system is only functioning at 60%. And in the second year, breast milk provides 29% of their energy requirements, 43% of protein, 36% of calcium, 75% of vitamin A, 76% of folate, 94% vitamin B12, and 60% of vitamin C. So As we probably all know, breast milk provides a lot of nutrients, and it's just kind of cool to see that even after the age of 1, what percentage of some of these nutrients it provides. So that also made me want to continue to do it as long as possible. The last reason why I decided to keep breastfeeding was for the soothing and comfort. One thing, and this is my belief, you know, when you're breastfeeding on demand like I did, it not only becomes a food source, but it also becomes a source of comfort. So just as if a child were to fall and scrape their knee, you might get them an ice cream cone. It's the same thing with breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is a soothing and comforting treat for a young baby or a toddler. And so that like even still today, if he like falls or bumps his head or does something where he hurts himself, I immediately breastfeed him because I know that that's like one thing that just immediately soothes him and calms him down. And so I think that that's like one of God's ways of letting us just be moms and just soothe our children naturally. So that was, those are kind of all the reasons that I decided to keep continuing to breastfeed and do self-weaning. I'll kind of do a rundown of what our time frame looked like. So at the age of 1, he was still breastfeeding probably twice in the morning, twice in the afternoon, and then once before bed, and not at night at all. Like he was sleeping through the night. So those are the times that he was breastfeeding. Once he went to his like pediatrician checkup and everything, and she told us that we could go ahead and start introducing whole milk, which I definitely had some hesitation there because I know like milk can be very inflammatory. So I was not sure if I wanted to do almond milk or coconut milk or some goat's milk or some other sort of milk substitute. But I went ahead and did whole milk, and I really like it. I think that he didn't have any issues with it. I will say, like, one time when he drank it a lot, he did have like white stool, and I think that that's pretty common when you're first introducing that much dairy into their diet. So just try to do it kind of slowly, like don't do it all at once. Which is also really nice if you're breastfeeding because you can kind of slowly introduce the whole milk and also continue to breastfeed, and it's not just like a huge shock on their stomach and all of a sudden they're having all this dairy. So after the age of 1, I decided that I wanted to just kind of stick to morning and night, and that didn't exactly happen like that right away. It definitely took some time because he still wanted that afternoon snack. Even today, he still wants that afternoon snack some days, and I give it to him. So you just kind of have to be prepared to feed on demand, but there's also tips and tricks to get away without doing it, and I'll share that as well. But definitely I would just give a sippy cup. I also got rid of bottles at 1 year, and that was just something that I just decided to do. I was kind of sick of bottles. We never used them much in the first place, so he did great with a sippy cup, so I just gave him his very first cup of milk was in a sippy cup. And that's how it's been since he's been 1. And so I would breastfeed him in the morning, give him a sippy cup of milk in the afternoon, and he'd kind of sip on it throughout the day. I put it back in the fridge, give it back to him. And then at night, he would nurse one more time before going to bed. As time goes on, he would kind of drop some of that feeding. Now he is 15 months old, and I will say we probably nurse 1 to 2 times a day. So if he wakes up early in the morning, I will nurse him in the morning. And I mean early, like 6 a.m. If he wakes up at like 7:30, then we just go straight to breakfast. But if he wakes up early and I don't want to wake up yet, then we nurse and then he goes back to sleep. Another time that we sometimes nurse is in the late afternoon around 4 o'clock. He usually gets kind of fussy, and I will go ahead and nurse him, and it changes his mood completely. So that's a good time for us as well. And that just changes. Some days he doesn't need it then, some days he does. And then lastly is nighttime. I honestly haven't nursed him at night in quite a while. I want to say like probably about 5 days now. And I'm kind of loving it because that was one thing that I had to do as a bedtime routine, was to go and nurse him and read him a story, and it was only I could do it. My husband couldn't do that. So now it's really nice because my husband can take over the nighttime routine and just read him a story, and he can go straight to bed. So I think my husband just tried it one time, and I was like, did he just go to sleep without having any breast milk? And he was like, yeah, he just went to sleep. So we've been doing that lately. Like, we give him dinner, we let him play a little bit, then we like read him a story, change his diaper and everything, and then just put him in his crib and he goes straight to sleep. So I think we are officially no, we're not officially done with nighttime feedings, but we're pretty close to being done with nighttime feedings. So I can tell, like with it being the schedule that we have right now, I can tell that he's very close to being done. And this is something that he's brought upon himself. Like he's been able to go to sleep without nursing, and he's been able to wake up and go straight to breakfast without nursing. So once your child starts to do those things without like tugging at your shirt or being really, really cranky, then that's how you kind of know, okay, we can move on to the next thing. We don't have to just breastfeed just because. So, and like I said, this is more about self-weaning. Like, yes, there's all the nutritional support with breastfeeding, but at the same time, like, I don't want to have to breastfeed forever. So if there are times that he's done, then I'm going to knock out that feeding. I want to also talk about my supply, because you're probably like, well, how do you keep up a supply if you're not nursing very often? Honestly, I don't know. I know that my supply is very, very minimal because I don't pump. I quit pumping at like 9 months, when he was 9 months old. So I don't pump, so there's really no way for me to know how much I have, but I can tell, like, they definitely feel a lot lighter, a lot emptier. I know he's definitely getting milk out because I can still like self-express and see that I still have milk. But I just know that it's not a lot. Like I can feel it. Like I can tell that there's not a lot. I think it's just enough for him to get that comfort and a little bit of nutrition. But it's definitely not like I'm overflowing. In fact, also with traveling, we've traveled twice now since I've been, extended breastfeeding, and I have not pumped. I've traveled for 3 nights and not pumped, and was totally not engorged, and then came back to him and was still able to breastfeed him, which is very interesting. Like I did not expect that. I even brought a handheld pump just in case, but nothing happened, and I thought for sure by the time I got home I'd be dried up, but I wasn't. I was still able to breastfeed. So I think you just kind of have to play it by ear and see, and hopefully you can still travel and stuff and not even have to worry about it. I think that I have such a small supply right now that's just like hanging in there. Okay, and then I also said I would tell you about if you do not want to breastfeed, what do you do? So there are times when I'm just like not feeling like it. You know, we're sitting on the couch, he's getting fussy. I can tell he wants to nurse, but maybe I'm on the phone or I'm doing something where I don't want to nurse him right then. The 2 things that I find really help is offer him a sippy cup of milk, or I offer him a pacifier. And one of those 2 things usually will help calm him down. And if it doesn't, I go ahead and nurse. But for the most part, I can get by with one of those 2 things and he will be just fine. And like I said, I have traveled before, so he's gone full weekends without breastfeeding, no problem. I think if I'm not around, he kind of forgets about it. And then lastly, as far as how long that we're going to be doing it, I think our journey is probably going to be ending soon. We'll just kind of play it by ear. Like I said, we're only down to 1, maybe 2 feedings a day, but they're just really little and it's just really not that much. But I know that he's getting that nutrition and that comfort. So until the day that he forgets that I have boobs, we'll just keep going. So if you guys have any questions about breastfeeding a toddler, extended breastfeeding, anything with this topic, let me know down below and I'll try to answer them. I'm not a professional, I'm just sharing my experience, and hopefully this will help you along your way breastfeeding your toddler. And keep going strong because it's so good for them and they will thank you for it. Actually, they probably won't care. They won't remember, but it's so good for them. So keep doing it and stay strong, and